we'll jump right into it. Hello, my name is Aaron Spears, and this is the Scenario Moment.
And I'm Brad Hathcock, pouring myself a little bit of Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond bourbon. Voted one of the top 10 bourbons of the year. So this
um,
is this is the year 2023 was a year I started going heavy into bourbon.
uh-huh.
You know, I went down to the bourbon trail and everything in Kentucky on my vacation and came home with quite a few bottles of bourbon. And so
Mm-hmm.
2024, I decided to start hunting like rarer and harder to find bourbons.
I'm
You
keeping an
wouldn't,
eye out for some years.
dude, you wouldn't believe the price of some of this shit. They have a bottle of Eagle Rare 25 year. It's $15,000.
Oh,
$15,000. And here I am like, I'm not going to buy a $200 bottle of bourbon. That's ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, 200 seems like a lot too. I mean, I've spent some money on some premium stuff. I've gotten like premium gin and stuff, but
Sure, sure. And one of the bottles I bought down in Kentucky was like $110. Um, but they only released 500 of them. So I have a one of 500 bottle.
um, it's really cool that you're getting into that. My new getting into hobby is much cheaper because I'm just like going full into IPAs, so it doesn't really cost me that much.
It's really not that much cheaper, like depending on how many IPAs you drink, because at least here, a 4 pack of IPAs can be like $22 to $26.
Well, they've all ranged in very variable prices, but I also there's just a lot of local breweries up here that I like to visit regularly, and they're always coming up
Oh,
with new
Oh
breweries.
yeah, especially California is a huge area for breweries. Like I think San Diego has one of the most breweries or something in the country. But interestingly enough, we're also starting to see breweries start to fall and declare bankruptcy and stuff, and it's because especially over the last year or two, it's so saturated, like the market. There's so many breweries, and like even ones you can't find in your state, right? But there's just so many that they're starting to declare bankruptcy, and we're gonna just see, I think, a huge consolidation of a lot of these like higher end craft breweries. I think. Um, what was it? Steam, yeah, Steam Anchor or something like that, which is one of the oldest known breweries in the country, even was going out of business. They initially scaled their business back just to be in California, and then they were going to close entirely. But the employees are actually trying to purchase the company so that they can keep it open.
That's too bad. Don't like to hear that.
No,
Well, on other economic news, I mean, this week is kind of the big week for me stock wise because Visa and JP Morgan have their quarterlies. And it, I don't know if you know this, but the stock market's kind of at a record high right now.
isn't that? I mean,
I mean, it doesn't mean anything
we
to
no,
normal
you and
people.
you and I have been doom and gloom about the economy all year. We've constantly predicted recessions and everything, and I do still think that's coming. Um, we have to remember that the Fed now needs to start like bringing down rates.
I don't think they're going to yet.
Dude, from the things I've been reading, people are calling for it, like they have to, and
Mm-hmm.
that they need to start like shaving points off here. So we'll see what happens. I mean, sure, that gives everybody kind of an influx of cash, but it's also going to increase the amount of debt that people take on. And as we see, people are already crazy in debt. Other people are still kind of saying that we're due for a recession as well. Some known economists, but arguably the economy is doing better. But it depends on if
Yeah.
you look at the stock market as an indicator. That's what people do look
Well,
as an indicator
I
of the
do,
economy.
but it's not core CPI doesn't look great.
Right. The economy to most people is just purchasing goods and services and things like that, and all of that is still up. Um, it's the stock market that the majority of people don't really get to dip their toes into at all. That actually looks pretty good for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for now. We'll see. More later this week.
Although speaking of that, a bunch of I think solar companies, their stocks are all way
Oh.
down right now, way down.
Yeah, I can't believe that something like Cylindra could happen and then it just happens again and again. Same thing with the EVs. You and I
Yeah,
shared articles this week about electrical vehicles and like how Hertz as the rental car company is like giving out these cars for like dirt cheap and nobody wants them because they can't get you anywhere and they don't work in the cold.
they're selling like 20,000 plus EVs from their stock, which I think equates to like a third of their overall stock of EVs, and they're really struggling with that. I just shared an article with you guys today. I forget who it was, is also like pulling back. Um, Tons of losses. I forget what it was exactly, but just tons of losses
Oh, it
left
was
and right on
the
EVs.
buses in
Ah,
South
that's right.
Carolina.
Yeah, so South Carolina spent like $5 million or something on all these EV buses, and now they're going to think more about gas-powered vehicles again. You know,
Biodiesel.
yeah, the whole like electric vehicle thing seems to be kind of falling on its face.
Well, there's so many things they don't tell you about when they say go get an electric car and then charge that fucking thing in your garage. Sounds great, right? But then
Unless you're
there's
in
like all the
California and then they tell you not to charge.
well, rolling blackouts, but they don't tell you that if you have a Tesla, it's not going to work on five other charging station types, and you have to have adapters. And
Yep.
I have a hotel in my town, and they have these. They have like four different charging stations. None of them are Tesla, and they all use a different connector. I know because I went to go check because I was curious. I want to see it for myself, and they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that whenever the battery dies, the car, like the wheels lock up and you can't tow it. They don't tell you how to get out of the car if the battery dies. They don't tell you about the software updates. They don't tell you about that, like with the new Tesla Cybertruck that we were talking about. Can't drive it on salt roads during the winter. Will ruin it. You have
Well,
to wash it.
the funny thing about the wheels locking up is like that's kind of a safety mechanism because
Yeah,
there is no like drive and shit. Like you just do it, right? Like you just do the thing, you go, and in order for them to not be able to steal your car when it's dead by just pushing it down the road, they have to lock the wheels.
which
That
is
seems like
fantastic
that's the mechanism,
because then how do you get it towed? Well, you can't
right?
get it towed with a regular truck because the wheels will burn up because they're locked. So it's just like there's like a lot of bullshit attached to it that only people are starting to figure out now.
One, they don't tell you it's not cheap. I mean, there are some cheap versions of cars out there. The Chevy Bolt or something like that is only, I think, like 19 grand. But who the fuck wants to drive one of those? Like,
Those are the ones that Hertz is getting rid of. Like I read this story about this person who literally went and said, "I would like a small power car. I'll take anything you got for gas or whatever." And Hertz was like, "All we have are these shitty little Chevy Bolts. Good luck to you, sir."
I mean, you got
It's
to
like,
watch especially with like smaller cars. I visited California in like 2015, and the car we rented, they gave us a Toyota Yaris.
oh yeah.
It's like the biggest piece of shit car I've ever driven in my life. It had one windshield wiper that went the entire like length of the windshield, and then we were going up the one, so that we had steep mountains on one side, beach on the other side, driving through fucking Malibu, like doing the California thing on our way up to Monterey, and because we had never been there before, and this Yaris, like we're coming up the one, and at one point it just makes like a really sharp turn and steep, like up to the right, and then it like in a complete V hard turn to the left and even steeper. And I had my foot so far to the floor, I almost was like Barney rubbling that shit. and we were not going more than 15 miles an hour.
That's
And
awesome.
my wife was like, "You could drive faster." And I said, "I have my foot to the floor. I don't think we're going to make it." And all we had was like luggage in the fucking car. Like, that's how bad that thing is. So imagine, like, something else low powered. I imagine even electric cars aren't that low power.
Well, ironically, the Toyota does use the Yaris in rally, so they do have like performance versions of the Yaris, but that wasn't the one you got,
Oh,
unfortunately.
I got the underperforming Yaris for sure.
You got the Yaris. Shall we talk about some news? You want to
Why
talk a little
not?
politics?
Let's talk politics.
That loser in Florida stepped aside. He's not going to run for president anymore.
Dude, he spent a lot of money, I think, and didn't get
Like over 130.
Yeah, and just did not get really where he needed to be. He came in second in Iowa, which you thought would have actually made him push through to New Hampshire, which is tonight. But he dropped out. I mean, and then endorsed Trump, naturally.
Which is hilarious because everybody that's endorsed Trump now, like I think even Tim Scott endorsed Trump and recently announced he was getting engaged to his girlfriend. And then Trump came out and started like making fun of him for, he's like, what's up with that? Why is he announcing that? Like, even when you endorse the guy, he'll still shit on you, which is kind of, they deserve that.
He has your endorsement. It doesn't matter. The thing is that people are so tied to party that they have to. I mean, I sent you that video where somebody yelled out to Nikki Haley, "Will you marry me, Nikki?" And she laughs and she goes, "Will you vote for me?" He goes, "I'm voting for Trump." And she's goes,
like, get out of here.
Yeah, she's like, "Get out of here." She's gonna fucking endorse Trump too. I don't know if people remember this. She like went and had a conversation with Donald Trump about running for president and got his blessing to run. He knew she's not gonna fucking beat him. The polls are looking like she's gonna get destroyed in fucking New Hampshire by Donald Trump.
Well,
So,
it's you'll find out whether she stays in or not depending on how badly she loses. So there's
no,
like a threshold.
She's going VP all the way because she does actually have a following and she's been getting donor money. She's gonna stand next to Trump and be the VP. I almost guarantee it. Because then you put a woman of color, going to the whole DEI thing. You know how you and I feel about KJP and like she's just awful. And now you have another woman of color that can come in and be vice president, a la Kamala Harris, but at least you have somewhat of a conservative view. But
yeah, but you have to imagine that if he picks a woman, it would be Elise Stefanik because she never wavered in her support of him.
Or Carrie Lake.
That would be a mistake.
He's had Carrie Lake like everywhere. That would be a mistake. It would be a political mistake. I think politically picking Nikki Haley is probably his best bet because the people who are moderate Republicans would actually vote for Trump, maybe to have Nikki Haley in.
But people feel the same way about Elise Stefanik, but also Elise Stefanik is a great fundraiser. As you know, it's all about the money. I don't know. Third option is JD Vance. He's apparently a third option.
Oof.
The guy who went to Yale, who came from a wealthy family growing up, even though he wrote Hillbilly Elegy, we're supposed to take him as like some sort of like grassroots man of the people. I mean, he's a populist like Trump is.
He's not. I will say his response on the East Palestine thing in Ohio, he was really championing for, the Biden regime to do what they had to do and like show up, which they never did. That's like really what his calling card has been, in my opinion. Other than that, he hasn't really done anything. Like in Ohio, if we're talking conservatives, they allowed Ohio to change their state constitution to allow abortion and then also pass recreational marijuana. So if you're a conservative and those are kind of against your values, you have
I don't think those are against conservative values. I think that's how those things pass. I think that they aren't I don't think conservatives are conservative anymore.
I think they say it in public, but they don't actually mean it. I mean,
I don't think so either.
That's virtually every politician, though. Like
Well, voters too. I think
sure.
I think the Conservative Party. Look, when we gotta actually throw that term out because it doesn't even mean what it used to mean. Like if you're a conservative now, like you consider yourself a Republican, you're for like big spending and for like limited access to abortion and
that's
you know
why
all
I
these
love
other
it when they call people fucking rhinos, because everybody's actually a fucking rhino.
Yeah,
Nobody's
who's the most
a Republican anymore.
Yeah, tell me who is the most establishment person this year? It's probably Donald Trump because he's got the endorsement of everybody in that party. Everybody, including all the money, all the donors, everything. He is the establishment. He was the president of the United States.
The last great Republican was fucking Ron Paul.
Ron Paul, was he Republican or was he a libertarian?
He's a libertarian now, but he was in office as a Republican, and I believe he ran for the Republican nomination back in the 80s.
I'll tell you that the last great Republican was George H.W. Bush. I'll go back even further to when we were babies. He was great.
I might not have been alive.
I'm not sure.
What years was that? 88? Birth
88
year?
to 92.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was definitely a baby.
But he was involved in politics long before, and his plane got shot down in World War II. That guy's life is... That's what I mean. He's like the last great politician because he was like in the military. He got out. He was in all these different... I don't know what you call it, like administrations, and I don't know. Anyway. What are we talking about? What the fuck were we talking about? Oh, we're going to have two 80-year-old men running against each other. We have to do that.
There's no stopping it now. I mean, Donald Trump is definitely going to be there. They still have to talk about putting him on the ballot in Colorado and Connecticut, I think was the other one, or
Maine,
Massachusetts or something that
probably Massachusetts too.
Was like trying to remove him from the ballot. That's not going to fly. I don't believe. Even on Bill Maher, they had a MSNBC legal correspondent or whatever talking to them, and even he said it wasn't necessarily constitutionally legal for them to take him off the ballot because he's never been convicted of anything. And I guess there is some statute talking about insurrection, and that goes into that 14th Amendment.
But you have to look at this is where the 5 points Trump made to the Supreme Court, 4 of them were like kind of lame. The one that wasn't was that amendment and the word insurrection. What does it mean? At the time it was written, it was for the Civil War. It wasn't meant for like today. And B, what is an insurrection? If you're a justice, you don't have the authority to define that for yourself. You just go to the law. It's up to Congress to enforce what that means or how to implement it. See what I mean?
Yeah. So
Congress isn't going to do that.
No, and I mean, you set yourself up for a precedent, right? Like, it's kind of all about maintaining precedent. Like, if you set this precedent, it's going to get misinterpreted. Pretty much everything always does with the government. So it's kind of like you and I have talked before. Someone else is going to wield this power at some point. So, like, how much power do you want to give individuals or the next set of government that maybe you don't like?
Apparently,
that's a
all
big
of
question.
It. If you're Congress, you just abdicate your power to the executive branch now.
I mean, that's fair, and at least there are guys who are advocating for the removal of the AUMF, even some Democrats as well. I think Ro Khanna actually put forward some kind of resolution to end the AUMF for the presidents, and that was shot down. So, and that's a Democrat. Me, I'm all for limited government. I think it needs to work in a certain way. I don't think it's working now, but I do feel like a lot of that's polarization. And that now you just have to stand for something instead of finding compromise, and not be willing to bend on your beliefs or everybody has to get their amendment into a law or something, like they all need money for themselves for one thing or another instead of taking the country as a whole into consideration.
Well, that's why the House is supposed to do that. They're supposed to be selfish for their own districts, and then the Senate is supposed to be the adults in the room who worry about their states and the country as a whole.
Except we don't have any adults in the room. That's actually been pretty much the problem
for. I mean, as far as I could tell, the most adult man in the room right now is John Fetterman. So, guy had a freaking heart attack, and he's,
Look, we'll say it here because it hasn't been said on this podcast yet. We've been very, very critical of John Fetterman early on throughout the race against Dr. Oz and everything. Okay, you and I have criticized him ad nauseum, and he's kind of fucking killing it right now in terms of supporting Israel, and I mean, how you and I differ on that as a whole, but like he's doing the thing, and progressives have voted him in to be one thing, and he's not that.
And no, he's like, we need to worry about the border. I'm good. Like, glad somebody said it.
What Democrat is arguing about the border? The only thing that they're saying about the border is that Republicans won't support this bill to help fix the border. But that's because you're tying it to other shit. Like, you're tying it to funding for Israel, to funding for Ukraine, things that they're trying to fight against. And that's the whole point why bills shouldn't be for multiple things. Like, why can't you have a bill about one thing?
You should write John Fetterman's office and ask him why. I bet you would get an answer. I'm serious.
I could drive to his fucking house. It's only like 20 minutes, 30 minutes from me. He's from Braddock.
Okay, so we've got the New Hampshire primary tonight. We've got people wanting to be vice president. Trump's going to take this whole thing. Biden's definitely going to run. Dean Phillips doesn't have much of a chance, although Dean Phillips could also do well in New Hampshire tonight. Don't forget that.
He could, yeah.
Biden's not on the ballot.
I think, yeah, but it's not going to matter. Like, the Democrats are going to pick who they want, right? Like,
well, you bank the delegates.
It's going to be Biden because Biden's the one that beat Trump. Even though it's not looking good necessarily for him in polls against Trump, it's going to be him because he did it before. And they have a puppet in place that they can manipulate. So,
well, it's frustrating to hear people say that Biden got all the millions of more votes than Obama did, Like, how did this guy beat Trump? And they just can't seem to figure out that Biden got 4 million more votes than Obama in California alone. Like, that is just one state.
Well, let's not forget here. Trump is not a good candidate. He's not.
No.
I mean, so there are people who are just voting for Democrats because it's not Donald Trump. Like, that's the majority of the reason why Biden won in the first place. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who can actually tell you that they voted for Joe Biden because of his policies and his stature, whereas most people just well, he's not Donald Trump.
I would say people who voted for Donald Trump probably have similar views where they're like, I don't know why.
He's not a Democrat.
Because he owns the libs, man. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean policy? The guy owns the libs.
I think one of the funniest things that people say about Donald Trump is that he's not a politician. That's it.
Yeah.
Dude, my own fucking stepdad tried to tell me he's not a politician. I was like, you go fuck yourself with that. I was like, that's not true. He's absolutely a politician. What the fuck do you think being a businessman like himself is? It's basically being a politician, especially at the level that he was doing it. You're trying to sway politics one way or another in your company's favor or whatever benefits your industry. That's just what you're doing. Okay.
Also, you could pick any villain you want out of the past 10 years. Whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or it's Hillary Clinton or it's Anthony Fauci, and just type Trump's name and their name and go to look at the image search. And that'll tell you everything you need to know about Donald Trump and being a politician.
Right. All you're doing is rubbing elbows with them. Like, I'm sorry, but that excuse is complete bullshit. And people that don't understand it, like, it just doesn't make sense. You know, my parents were here, my stepdad and my mom, and they were like arguing about politics in my house, which big fucking no because none of you pay attention to the shit the way I pay attention to shit. And like my mom was talking about January 6th, and she's like, "It's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing for that to happen here." And I was like, "Why? Why?" And she's like, "Well, you know, this is the U.S." I said, "Yeah." I said, "And we actually fund this shit in other countries all of the time. So why is it embarrassing that it happens here when we're constantly doing it across the world?" And she just was like, I'm like, "Yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't really know what you're talking about. Like, that was the Revolutionary War. Like, you know, and January 6th is nothing like the Revolutionary War. They were fucking tarring and feathering people out in the streets. Like, that's how you start a revolution, not carry a podium out of the fucking Capitol building because you want a souvenir."
Well, they stayed within the velvet ropes that day too. I mean, there's like a lot of weird.
They aren't throwing tea in the fucking harbor, okay?
Yeah, not. I'm not defending it, by the way.
They're putting their boots up on somebody's desk. No, I agree with you, but I again, it kind of comes down to what we were talking about before. The Supreme Court might have to choose to define insurrection in certain terms in order to remove Donald Trump from
I bet ballots. You they won't do that.
I guarantee you they won't do that, because then you're just setting forth a precedent, especially with a very charged election like we are about to have. Because if you set the terms indefinitely of what an insurrection is, all of the riots you had from, you know, we've seen government buildings getting pretty fucked up, or like people protesting in people's offices. If you set that precedent of what an insurrection is, you're gonna be fucking putting people on watch lists and calling them insurrectionists quite frequently. So
I've been seeing about an insurrection every weekend with all these Gaza Palestinian protesters. So
exactly.
I would like, okay, so before I want to move on to something else, but before I do that, I want to read you a quote from Donald Trump. This is from yesterday. You ready?
Can you read it in his like diction, or
the people are saying
stop, please. You don't have the range. Don't do it.
I don't. Okay. We are an institute in a powerful death penalty. Donald Trump, January 22nd, 2024. His brain's turning to mush too. They're both their brains are turning to mush.
Oh, definitely, dude. He's really been on the decline lately, for sure. Like, some of the shit that he's saying is pretty off the wall, and Democrats are right to kind of call that out. The media is right to call that out, because they have been calling out the gaffes of Joe Biden. So it has to happen both
What's
directions.
Good for the goose is good for the gander. We are an institute in a powerful death penalty. That's brilliant right there.
I agree with the first part. We are an institute.
We are an institute. I agree with the second part. We're in a powerful death penalty. But I don't know if they go together very well.
That spiraled more like it. 3 more years. 3 more years.
4 more, 5 more.
No. 3 more, and statistically speaking, we should see the downfall of our society.
Oh no! Well, that goes on. Biden wins.
Every 250 years, right? But that falls right into the Armageddon of the United States. So, are we going to see Red Dawn situation? You think the North Koreans will invade like backwards ass Iowa and shit?
The Red Chinese. Before we move on, is there anything else you want to talk about? Because I'm going to talk about the Oscars.
Go ahead.
Okay. We love the movies here on the Ella Moss and Narrate Moment, so why not talk about them? the nominations came out today, and they're all pretty much what you expect. They're all like liberal, left-leaning movies that have the right messages, not the wrong ones, even though these are all complicated stories. Best Picture, American Fiction. I actually heard some really interesting things about this movie. I think we both should watch it. It sounds like it's pretty interesting.
It's called American Fiction?
Yeah,
I'd never even heard of it.
It's got a what's his Jeffrey Wright in it. And I guess Jeffrey Wright he's a black author, and the movie's full of like woke white people who are like imposing on him. It's like very strange and I guess subversive. Anatomy of a Fall, I don't know what that's about. Barbie, don't care. The Holdovers, great movie. Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro,
Anatomy
Oppenheimer.
of a Fall was on there?
Yeah.
Interesting. I keep
guess...
seeing that pop up on Prime, so like I'm wondering what it is. But I've not been watching anything that came out in 2023 because I've been focusing on my 2024 list.
Well, we got Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, which I would like to see. Poor Things, which I'd like to see, although I hear bad things. And The Zone of Interest, which is a Holocaust concentration camp movie that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, I just recently saw some articles about Zone of Interest, and that piqued my interest. So I think that's one that I might take a gander at. There's not so much that has come out yet for 2024, so I kind of have to supplement my time with other stuff.
For directing, we've got Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, which I've never heard of that person. Scorsese, Nolan, Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. So I won't go through everything. I do think it's funny that Maestro got nominated, and it's supposedly about that composer. Do you know his name? I'm drawing a blank.
I don't. No, but the only thing I know about that movie is that they tried to get Bradley Cooper in trouble for having a fake Jewish nose. So I guess it was like kind of large or something like that. And because he wore a fake nose, people were like equating it to blackface. I don't know. It was really weird.
So
I think they did reshoots over it.
Okay, so whoever the composer is I haven't looked. I don't have it in front of me, but one part of that movie that it's like he's closeted gay, or he's gay and his wife knows he's gay or whatever, and that's kind of like what the movie's about. The movie leaves out one of the most interesting parts of his story, which is that Tom Wolfe, the author, wrote that famous article Radical Chic about him, because Radical Chic, like CHIC, because there were like all these rich people, and he invited all these Black Panthers over to his house, and he sounded ridiculous in front of Tom Wolfe. He was saying things like they used to say back in the day, like oh, that's really cool, Daddy-O, or whatever. Like he was trying to act like cool, like radical but chic. So he was like talking to these Black Panthers who wanted to overthrow the government with their like Marxist propaganda or whatever, and he's just like, yeah, I get that, Daddy, and like, or Daddy-O, and that's kind of what that article is based on. It's very famous. It's like limousine liberal, where it's like you're wealthy enough that you can support radical ideas, but you don't actually engage with the real world, so you don't know what the consequences would be. Pretty interesting.
I have a radical idea. You just start talking like that permanently.
What, Daddy-O? You mean talk like a groovy cat?
Yeah, dumb shit. People will hate you already more than they do.
Oh no! I be honest with you, I can't even, like, that's all I got. I couldn't think of any more.
Let's all hope that Barbie doesn't win anything. It's La La Land. Remember when that movie came out and it was like, I think Ryan Gosling and a bunch of fucking like super hardcore Hollywood people, and they were all dancing and singing and shit. and it was literally like a lot of the reviews that came out were like, "This is just Hollywood patting itself on the back."
Uh-huh.
Um,
That's
that's
exactly
what
what it
that's
was.
what Barbie is, in my opinion.
Ah,
It's
yeah.
the patriarchy thing we did talk about earlier, where Bill Maher has been railing against the plot of this movie because they show Mattel's board as all men and that they, patriarchy won. But that's not actually true. Mattel's board, I believe, is 50% female. So, like, the whole movie is rendered pointless at that juncture. So, I hope it doesn't win shit. It's not deserved. The only thing that is deserved in that regard, I think, is Ryan Gosling. He was fucking funny in that movie. He
Yeah, but
was.
he is up against a wall. He's got Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, and Sterling K. Brown. He's at the bottom of that list, dude.
Yeah, I I have to agree with that. That's a tough list. To imagine De Niro at his age now winning an Oscar is interesting. What's he on
I
there
mean,
for?
Killers of a Flower Moon.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, man, that's one of his best roles. But
I
Robert
haven't
Downey
gotten.
Jr. and Oppenheimer, I think, probably takes that one.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible in that movie. Absolutely incredible. Probably deserves it. Now, is that for supporting or
Supporting.
gotcha?
Barbie didn't get anything else. It got supporting for America Ferrera, which, if you're gonna give a character in that movie an award, I guess it would be that would be a good fit. But she's up against Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, and also the woman from The Holdovers, who that was an amazing role.
To be honest with you, I'm not overly familiar with America Ferrera, so I'm not even sure who she was in Barbie.
She was on that show Ugly Betty.
Yeah, she was like heavier set then or something, right? She's like
Yeah,
not
she's
now.
skinny now.
I don't even think I would recognize her. I just don't
She
really
was
know who
the
she is.
the actual mom character in Barbie, like the real person mom.
Oh, okay.
She incredibly forgettable. That movie, everything about it.
Did you even finish it? I know
Nah,
you said no, you didn't finish it.
nah.
I watched it with my wife, so I had to watch the whole thing, unfortunately, but
Well,
it was on my
I think
list.
I would probably enjoy it more if I was watching it with somebody else, so I could at least go, "What the fuck?" Like, just to point out the absurd things that I found. But the writing, best writing original screenplays: Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. That's for original screenplay.
I haven't even heard of most of those.
May December is the one that's about it's Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, and one of them's the actor portraying the woman who married her student, who she had a relationship with. It's based on a real story.
I'm also not a big Juliana Moore fan, so
I'm not either. Oh God, do you remember that story though? There was an actual story about a woman who she slept with her student, and then she went to jail. And when she got out, they ended up getting married and having a family.
vaguely,
Uh,
vaguely.
Apparently, that's what this is about, but it's not glorifying it. It's apparently like more like this is really bad what happened. And then for best writing for adapted screenplay, American Fiction, Barbie, which is hilarious because it's adapted from what? A toy? Oppenheimer, Poor Things, which is, I think, based on, I think it's adapted from Frankenstein, and then Zone of
Yeah,
Interest.
Emma Stone, I think, is in that Poor Things, right?
Yeah.
I had never even seen a trailer or anything for it. I don't even know what it's about, but um, apparently, I think she does like nude scenes in it or something like
It's supposed
that.
to be like very explicit nudity in it.
Really? Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the knock against it, but I don't consider that a knock because I need to know what the story is about and how it's shot. So, but my threshold for like absolute debauchery in movies is so low now. I'm like, I watch anything, I don't care, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we have constant conversations about some really fucked up movies. Like, I did tell you that Nymphomaniac, the director's cut, like, it's something to behold. I mean, you're in 6 hours of fucking film.
I haven't seen it, but One day I'll get the balls to watch that one.
It's Lars von Trier, so instantly it's already very weird and tough to watch, as all his movies are. But this one is especially difficult, and especially for the director's cut of it.
Yeah. Nothing else really stands out. Oh, best documentary. I hadn't seen any of these, but I was just saddened that the one that I loved wasn't on it at all. That's why my top 15 matters.
What were they?
Bobby Wine, the People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, which I bet you is about that, and 20 Days in Mariupol, which is a Ukrainian documentary, obviously.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, was that made by fucking Sean Penn?
He's not a producer on it.
Sean Penn did some kind of documentary or something where he was in Ukraine and he interviewed Zelensky. I don't know if that would have come out in 2023.
I'm pulling it up right now, but because I know he did go over there. He was one of the first people that actually went over there.
But he was doing a documentary. Not like he went over there for some fucking like wholesome purposes.
This is produced by PBS Frontline.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this doesn't look like it's anything. Screening controversy. It was to be shown in Serbia. And the far-right, ultra-nationalist Serbian Radical Party called for cancellation. Interesting. Well, anyway.
A Serbian film?
The most fucked up movie I've ever seen.
Really? That's the most fucked up movie you've ever seen?
Well, yeah, because there are movies that are more sort of like visually despicable, but they're not handled with such seriousness. They're more lighthearted, I guess you could say. Like Salo is like not serious at all. It's almost like silly, over the top. The Serbian film's just gritty.
Interesting take. I like it.
Yeah. I watched a bunch of movies recently. I watched Massacre in Dinosaur Valley. That was great.
So for all of you, that's probably like a 1980s film.
It's like an 80s like B movie.
There you go.
With like
nailed it.
With subsequent nudity and not a plot. I watched First Blood. That was a great movie.
See, now that we can talk about. Okay. This motherfucker never saw any Rambo? Any
I've never
Rambo,
seen any Rambo.
Right? Why the fuck not?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
First Blood is a classic. And then you have like Rambo First Blood 2.
Part 2.
Which is like, you can only have one First Blood, right? And then you have Rambo 3, I think it's called.
And there's 5 of them.
And then there's Rambo, which actually was pretty good. So we're talking like 4 out of 5 pretty good films. The last one wasn't great.
Yeah, I heard that. That one's called... I'm pulling them up now. We're going to look at all of them.
So Rambo...
Oh, Last Blood.
Rambo, where he goes into Burma, that whole meme of him, of this, is from that movie. Yeah. He's shooting like a 50 cal gun, and he's like looking down the thing like this, and that's where that thumbs up meme comes from, of Rambo doing that, because it's a 50 cal. So the fact that you've never even seen that is really funny, because you have used that meme before.
Yeah, I definitely knew what the meme was from. But it's funny too. I've seen all of Sylvester Stallone's like other, like Cliffhanger's one of my favorite movies ever made. I love Rocky.
Yeah, Cliffhanger's great.
Yeah, Cliffhanger's fucking great. But then I don't know. I never saw a Rambo movie, and I was just like one night I was like, I'm gonna watch First Blood or not First Blood. What is that one called? It doesn't even call. It's not called Rambo anything, right?
Which one?
Oh, First Blood. First Blood is First Blood.
No, it's just I think it's called First Blood, and then they might have retitled it to be like Rambo First Blood or something. Who knows?
Which is why First Blood Part 2 is confusing. Okay. Yeah. I'm confused now.
But speaking of Sly Stallone, Cliffhanger was so good and a very underrated film at that, that they even spoofed it in Ace Ventura, which I know you're not a fan of.
I just want to talk about Cliffhanger. Like the soundtrack to that movie is fucking spectacular.
Yeah, that's what I
John
meant.
Lithgow
Cliffhanger.
is like incredible, and as like the villain, and there's like actors in that movie that you're like, oh yeah, that guy. There's like a lot of that.
John Lithgow was so underrated because he was on that fucking Third Rock from the Sun TV show.
That's all I knew him from. I didn't know he was a real actor.
Dude, really? I think he was. Wasn't he in War Games with Matthew Broderick back in the 80s?
What? Really?
Yeah, I think so. Check that out. He was like,
yeah, I'm pulling it up.
Not his stepdad, but he was like dating his mom, and Matthew Broderick goes in and does the War Games thing. Might not. No, no, it wasn't War Games. This kid creates a nuclear bomb, and he steals plutonium from John Lithgow's like lab that he works in. I can't remember what it was called, but that was like 80s or 90s, I think. And he like creates this device to go in and like steal uranium or something from John Lithgow's lab, and then he builds a nuclear bomb in like his garage.
I can't find anything. There's so much.
Oh, really?
He was in Twilight Zone the movie.
It had to have been like the 90s. At this point I'm not even remembering what it was called.
He was in Harry and the Hendersons.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
I remember that.
He was so underrated.
He's in Killers of the Flower Moon. He makes an appearance in there. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I
he
still have
pops
to
up
watch
and you're
that.
Like, hey.
I started watching that, and then I wasn't giving it the attention that I know I need to give it in order to actually like watch the movie.
Yeah,
so
it has to be watched for sure.
Yeah, I decided I wanted to actually sit down and watch that one and give it my full attention, which for me is kind of tough. So I felt like I just needed to do that. Napoleon as well, which is also coming out on Apple Plus soon. So
yeah, that one I'll be ordering. Actually, I'm ordering almost everything I get now on Blu-ray, but I'm excited to see Napoleon. I did look at the it was nominated for best costumes or something, so
really
it got some recognition. Yeah,
which is funny because I think some of my friends who do like reenactments, it's typically my buddies Kevin and Derek. They do reenactments, and like if something's not time period specific enough, they like have a real big issue with it, where like they won't even watch the movie. And I think they were saying something about Napoleon, because they go back and do like Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II reenactments, stuff like that. And so they know about this stuff. Okay, like time period. I think Ridley Scott clothing.
I think he said he took liberties.
That's not good enough in their opinion. Me?
Not well.
I
me
won't
either.
notice. I won't notice.
I guess I would notice.
I'm not going to notice from like that time frame if something is accurate or not.
Dude, you show me anything from France and I go like, yep, that's accurate. Like I don't know what the fuck they wore. I just know Napoleon looked a certain way and he's got the hat.
I also don't care. It's like the number. Let's get that right. The number one thing. Like I don't care. I looked my friend Derek straight in the face and I was like, "You're fucking stupid for like not watching a movie just because it doesn't have a historically accurate button on a jacket."
I think you should watch everything. Yeah, and then you could at least criticize it.
Exactly. So I'm still excited to watch Napoleon, although I know it kind of got panned a little bit by critics and stuff like that.
Kind of forgettable, maybe.
Yeah, that's that was like documentary, but like not really documentary. I think people had an expectation of it being akin to, I don't know, maybe like The Patriot
Gladiator.
or Gladiator or something like that. And it's apparently not, so we'll see.
They gave it best production design nomination. We should actually talk about best visual effects here. I didn't even think about this because there's movies on here, including Napoleon for best visual effects.
Interesting.
They gave it a nomination to the creator. Did the creator have good special effects?
I fell asleep during it and turned it off. So I'm
what
gonna
did they have, like
say
green screen
no.
on the neck?
Just say
Yeah.
no.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. I don't think they were that great. I mean, you could tell that they had like a computer composition something over it. I don't know. Maybe it was fine.
Yeah, I would agree. That's probably not in my.
Godzilla -1 is on there, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I bet you that one wins, actually.
Did you ever get to see Godzilla -1?
No.
Still haven't.
Still no. And it's coming out. They're releasing it, I think, only for this weekend. They're doing a black and white showing. It's called Godzilla -Color.
Yeah, you know what? I saw an article about that, and I was gonna send it to you because I was like, he's got to go see it now in like the old school
dorky,
black and white. Because this is the one where he goes and destroys Japan again, right? So,
well, for the first time, actually, I guess. Not to spoil it, but it's a period piece. My assumption is that they'll do the same thing they did with Mad Max Fury Road, where they came out with the black and chrome edition because people were just like, "Please give us this movie in black and white." I'm sure they'll come out with a release that's like the movie and the black and white, and then I'll just watch it then.
Weird. Well, Furiosa comes out this year, so we have that to not look forward to. Because quite honestly,
it didn't look very good, huh?
It does not. No, not compared to how Mad Max Fury Road was. Like, that was fucking so good. This does not seem to be the same, in my opinion.
I don't want a Furiosa movie. That's my problem. Like, I want a Mad Max to like meet new people and do new adventures, not that.
It's because you're a fucking misogynist.
Thank you.
But Tom Hardy as Mad Max was great. So not that he had a lot of lines in the movie, but he was pretty fucking good.
He's just the John McClane of like the apocalyptic Australian outback, you know? Like he just shows up and then crazy shit happens.
But he's a very physical actor, you know. Just even being in like Dunkirk and being Bane and stuff, people have asked, like, obviously Christopher Nolan is a whole different animal. But they've been asking, like, are you afraid to like cover up an actor like his face? And he was like, him? No. You can cover up his face, no problem. Because, I mean, in Dunkirk, he had the mask or whatever on for the entire time that he was flying.
He's one of the best characters in that movie.
He's literally just flying a plane the whole time. And then in Bane, you have his mask covering his face the entire time. Like, and Nolan just said, like, he's one actor you don't have to worry about. Like, he's so good at making those facial expressions, and he's a very physical actor. Which is why people think he would make a good Wolverine, and I agree. I'd like to see that, but that's the big thing people were saying, because he is a good actor otherwise, other than Venom. It's just
I was gonna say Venom. I mean, there's proof that if you don't cover his face up, it doesn't make him a better actor, because that movie's just awful.
Did you see the second one? Did you? Okay, so you definitely saw the second one. Dude, they're doing a third one.
I know, the second one's worse than the first one.
They just want to like crank this shit out. That's the problem with Marvel shit. Like, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. They're just gonna keep cranking them out.
Well, I used to say that's not true. Sony's different. They're the ones who pump the shit out. But now I can just say that, yeah, you're right. It's everybody now, including DC, which they just cast that Superman.
They need to stop.
We're gonna do that all over again.
Henry Cavill, there was nothing wrong with him as Superman. Actually, he was quite good. It wasn't him.
Yeah.
Bad scripts, and then you just get into Justice League, which is awful. I am a little bit excited to see the DC reboot that they're about to do, and like give James Gunn the keys to the basically whole universe in that regard, because the newest Suicide Squad movie was actually good. It was funny.
It was.
I believe he does Peacemaker, which was a very good show. I enjoyed that. But then, I actually did like the Batman, and the Batman I think is coming out this year as well.
And don't forget Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He did that too.
Right,
and
which
I
you
liked
said
it.
was good. So I am excited to see how that comes about. The problem for me with DC is most of these characters are just bad.
Including the
Aquaman
villains.
is really just not a good character. The
I
villains,
don't like any of the villains.
I think
like every
Zod
Spider-Man
is
villain's
like
great, but
good enough. Well, yeah, but they ruined like with Spider-Man. I think it was Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man where they had the Rhino and
Paul
Shocker.
Giamatti.
Yeah, and they had like the Shocker, which was
Jamie Foxx,
who you hate. So, and that was not very good. Like,
no,
Andrew Garfield was panned as probably like the worst Spider-Man that we've had.
Which sucks because he actually wasn't bad. I don't think we've had a bad Spider-Man.
I agree with that. I think that they had some bad scripts. Like Spider-Man 3 was pretty shitty with
That's
what's
the
his
studio.
face. Yeah, and you just get to a point where everything is like overproduced. The first one was like pretty gritty and pretty new because they were just doing every big superhero movie at that time. With and Marvel, wasn't even purchased by Disney yet, so like
No,
they were just doing everything gritty that they could, and like look at Blade. Blade single-handedly kind of brought comic book movies, I think, into the forefront, and now we're at like the Toxic Avenger level of fucking comic book shit.
there was the Eric Bana Ang Lee Hulk movie, which was like I liked it more than any of the other Hulk shit.
Arguably,
but it's more of like
Eric
a comic
Bana
book.
is in like two good movies, Troy, and it's in spite of him.
It is in spite of him.
I couldn't even Black Hawk Down. It's probably the other good movie.
The movie with the guys, the guys who go kill the Munich.
Oh,
Munich.
Yeah, he was good in that.
Yeah, there you go. Those are all three Eric Bana movies.
Did
you ever see that movie? Did you see that movie Funny People with Adam Sandler?
No.
Actually, he's pretty funny in that.
That's one of that's like the era of Adam Sandler I don't really care for. I like the old stuff like Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, like that kind of thing. But then he transitions into like after Click, it's like Grown Ups and like Blended, Spanglish, like that era.
Oh, I like Spanglish.
That era of Adam Sandler I don't really care for. But then he comes out with Uncut Gems, which is an A24 movie. And you know how you and I love A24. It's like,
banger!
Uncut Gems was like pretty fucking good. Which I actually did share with you an article the other day. It was like the top 10 A24 movies, and it was a terrible list. It was not even remotely the fucking list that you or I would have, I think, for A24.
No, the movies that they left off and the movies they included were like, what?
They just punted that one.
It was snobby.
Like,
I think they did it on purpose.
Uncut Gems was on there, which I do like Uncut Gems.
I do too.
Does it make the top 10 for A24?
You know what we should do, you and I? We should go off and make our top 10 A24 movies.
I think we're going to have to. Back.
And then maybe we could do it next episode. And then we'll show them what they don't know.
I think we're going to have to. Because this list was just trash.
Have you seen Men? Alex Garland's Men? I think it's Alex Garland.
I have not, no.
Well, you don't have to watch it. I did it for you. It's a very pretentious, boring, weird movie. But to have that on there, that makes that list reek of like just fart sniffing in a room somewhere. Like, yes, let's include men on this list.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird list. I just don't know. Like, I don't really care for it, but we'll see. I mean, God, there's so many good and bad movies out there. There's more bad than good, I promise you that. But that's why Aaron and I take it upon ourselves to watch these movies, so you don't have to.
You never have to watch Men. You can ask me anything, and I'll tell you about it. You want to know about the man that gives birth to his own self over and over again? I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, I've definitely never seen it, especially after you describe it that way.
A man gives birth to himself, and then that man gives birth to himself, and it just keeps happening, and this monster's chasing her by giving birth to himself. And yeah, it's pretty fucking gross and weird, and don't watch it. It's a bad movie. Okay. We've been going for a little bit. Do you want to call it here?
Yeah, certainly we can.
Okay. You're going on vacation, so I'll see you next week.
I am. I'm going to Tampa. Thank God. The weather here has been dog shit. It's been like 5 degrees. I actually am saying that literally. It's been 5 degrees. So I am looking forward to this weekend. I will be gone for like 4.5 days, and it's supposed to be like 80 the entire time that I'm in Florida. I'm so fucking excited.
Well, there's no football and anything happening in Florida now, so you have all that to look forward to.
No, I have Gasparilla, where I have to deal with a bunch of fucking idiots dressed as pirates, thinking that they're
what?
Yeah, it's called Gasparilla. I don't think I'm going. I hope I'm not going. My friend who I'm going to see likes to drag me to do things that I don't like doing, i.e. staying out till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, drinking.
Nothing bad ever happens after midnight.
So, it's shit like that. He likes to go out to bars, which inevitably leads to trouble, which I just don't care to partake in.
Trouble?
But it's fine. I love seeing him, so it'll be fun, and I get some beautiful weather. The Tampa Bay Lightning even released a Gasparilla inspired hockey jersey. Has like a skull and crossbones on it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's interesting. But it's basically I sent you a video on Instagram of Mark Normand, I think, like making this joke in Tampa. These like pirates basically descend upon Tampa, and now there's like a festival about it. And I don't think it was a good time for Tampa when they rolled into town, but there's a whole festival about it now. So that's what I'm about to experience.
Well, it's slightly hockey related. I didn't mention it, but last night was the Panthers. It was a dad's game. They brought all their dads with them to Nashville, and they all got cowboy hats, and they were all like cheering their boys on, and the boys were crushing it, and it was fun. I was like, yeah, I want more dad nights in hockey.
Yes, because Aaron and I don't have dads, so we have to look forward to other people having dads.
Yeah. We are not fathers or sons anymore.
We're basically just orphans and lost people.
Yeah.
And on that note,
have a good one.
Have a good one, everybody.